As parents, as dads, our job as God-given responsibility is to prepare our kids for a time at which we are not next to them. To prepare them for a time when they're without us. And this takes two forms. When they're without us, when they're away from next to us, when they're in school without us, when they're online without us, when they're away at school for college without us, when they form their own families without us, when they're at work without us, when we are not next to them and protecting them and guiding them. Our job is to prepare them for times like this. Also, it is to prepare them for a time when we pass away. After we're gone, they will be totally without us, where they cannot call us, reach out to us, ask us questions. Our job on earth for this time is to prepare them for those times. Now, as dads, how do we do that? We do it in two ways. One is we pass along skills and abilities and knowledge to them that we hope they will use when we are not next to them. We pass it along in such a way that that knowledge at some point manifests itself as wisdom. It doesn't stay as knowledge, it becomes wisdom. As you know, the difference is knowledge is just knowing things, but wisdom is knowing when to use that knowledge. So our focus, our job, our hope is to prepare our kids for that. So what do? We give them skills to survive this world. As dads, we know what they're going to confront. We know how bad it is out there. We know what is coming their way as they grow up. When they grow in the shelter of our home, our protection, they're protected. But as they start venturing out, slowly to school, to after-school activities, to away at school, away at work, they're going to be bombarded with situations for which we prepare them. We give them skills. We give them skills that are practical. I don't know if anybody still does this, but how to check your oil. It's funny though. In some cars, you cannot even check your oil anymore. Even for that, you must take it to the dealer. But at the very least, you should teach them how to change their flat tire. Okay? So dads must do these things, practical things. And we give them skills, hopefully knowledge about finances. How to spend, what to spend it on, how much to save, how to invest, if to invest. We give them skills and knowledge about social situations, how to handle yourself in a particular group. You know, as you're growing up, your dad will tell you, son, when you're shaking somebody's hand, make sure it's a firm handshake, look them in the eye, speak to the person that you're speaking to. These little things, these social cues and clues that people need to pass along. Incidentally, there are certain things a mom cannot teach their children, especially their sons. Only dads are equipped to pass along certain knowledge and skills to their sons. If you look at the national statistics, the most violent criminals come from single-parent, mother-led households. It's not because moms teach violence, but there are certain things that a presence of a dad can achieve. Presence of a father makes a big difference. And then we teach them about ethical norms. What's right, what's wrong, what's ethical, what's to be expected, how is a person supposed to behave in a certain situation. But to survive in this world is not the most important thing, is it? If we're preparing them for a time that we are not next to them, we must do them in a way, we must prepare them in a way that that time is only temporary. What do I mean? We must prepare them for a time when we are not next to them in such a way that we will be with them forever. Does this make sense? Let's prepare them in such a way that we can be with them forever. What do I mean? In Proverbs 22, verse 6, we read, "Train up a child in the way that he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now, at a cursory glance, this seems like a very practical parenting advice. Teach a kid the way he should act when they're young, so when they get older, hopefully they will continue the same way. But it is a little deeper than that, isn't it? Let's turn really quickly, if you're following with me, to Genesis 18, verse 19. Now, this is God speaking of Abraham. Look at God's expectations on Abraham. This is Genesis 8, chapter 18, verse 19. He says, "For I have chosen him so that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him." God's expectation of Abraham is to teach his children righteousness and godliness. God's expectation of us is to train up our children in the way that he should go. What way is that? It's godliness and righteousness. That is the expectation of the Lord from us. When we read Ephesians 6, we find that's Ephesians 6:4. Apostle Paul says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord." In Colossians, Apostle Paul says something similar, but he adds, "Do not exasperate them. Do not be overly critical of your children. Do not be constantly choking them with rules and regulations and just so that they lose heart." You see, as parents, as dads, we need to have a balance. We must bring our children in the way of the Lord, where his knowledge, they must see his presence in our lives, his reality in our lives, his importance in our lives. But it shouldn't be like a basic training camp at home. We must, at times, break the rebellious attitude from our children without breaking their spirit. This is a fine line, and it's different for every child. But it's important to discipline a child, teach them the right way without breaking their spirit. Are you following what I'm saying? There is something evil out there where over-disciplining, overburdening the kids, choking them, in a sense, by speaking of God constantly, we are not going to bring up kids that love the Lord. I wish that was the case. But it is said that Christianity is caught, not taught. You cannot teach Christianity. Christianity must be observed and embraced. Jesus did not hit over the head to anybody to teach them anything. He exampled it, he lived it, he proved it, and whoever followed them were saved. Same thing with our kids. When we're being dads, with all our shortcomings, flaws, imperfections that we all have, we must communicate to our children how important God is for us. And that happens through actions, that happens through the decisions we make, that happens through the plans we make, that happens through taking the steps in life that are godly, that happens through being an example. Yes, at times we will sit down and explain to them the scriptures. There will be a lot of times it will not make sense to them why we are making the decision we are making. And that's a golden opportunity to share with the kids. We're doing this, son, because this is what a Christian does. We're doing this because this is what God expects from us. We're doing this because this is the right thing to do in front of the Lord. Those are golden opportunities to communicate to our kids. And they must also see how real God is in our life. Are we just coming to church every Sunday? You could be very religious and do religious things all the day. You could be a pastor, full-time, working at a church, and still not communicate to your kids how important God is to you. You see, you probably heard me say this a million times, but our faith must be real. It must permeate every decision, every step, every intention of the heart, every motivation we have must be immersed, baptized in Jesus. Once He's real in our lives, not the way we portray things, not the way we are seen by others, because, we can orchestrate events and situations and comments in a way that we will be seen a certain way. I personally think to engineer a circumstance where you could seem righteous is more detestable to the Lord than actually not believing in Him. That's not the Christian life. We don't paint a picture of faith. We must be a picture of faith. We don't portray a picture of righteousness. We must walk in righteousness. This is the only way Christianity will be caught from us. You can speak to people until you're blue in the face. People will not remember what you told them. They will remember what they observed in you. People will not remember what you did to them. They will remember how you made them feel. Very important. It has to be real. And we spoke about legacy at some point. In the book of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 44, there are two short parables that our Lord shared with his disciples. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in the field, which a man found and hid again. And from joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. And then, again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking fine pearls. Upon finding one pearl of great value, he went and sold all that he had and bought it." What's the point Jesus is telling us? What is that one thing that is worth selling everything you have only to buy? And notice, these are not people that do not know the value of the things they're buying. One is a pearl merchant. He finds this great pearl of great value. He knows exactly what he's looking at. He knows exactly how much it's worth, and he sells everything just to buy it. Because he understands and knows the value of what he is reaching out for. So what is it in our lives that is so valuable that we want to pass on to our kids as our legacy? Is it money? Buildings, deeds, rental income, strong portfolio? They all have their place. In some way, our legacy is unfortunate. In some ways, it's dysfunction, bad habits, wrong examples. It's also out there. But what should it be? What should be our legacy? You see, if we're preparing them for a time that they're without us, we must prepare them in a way that when we get to heaven, they will be there too. We must prepare them for a time that they're without us in such a way that we will be with them forever again. That's the legacy we must pass behind. Being a true believer, being born again by grace of God, being forgiven of the sins that we have committed, being surrendered to the Lord. In the meantime, the time that we're born and time we enter into eternity, yes, we must give them the skills to survive this world. True. How to work, how to live, how to act, how to react, all within a godly reflection. But the most important, the pearl of the greatest value, is the knowledge to serve the Lord Jesus so that we can be with him forever. This is the greatest legacy we can pass on to them. This is the greatest lesson we can teach them. This is the greatest inheritance we might leave them for a time they are without us. God bless you and happy Father's Day.